Welcome back to That Dad Guy. It is January the 30th, 2025, and today we are going back into my father's stamp collection, and we're looking at another country that's primarily in South America. And we'll get into why I say primarily in South America. But what we've been doing is we've been going through one of these albums back here, and my father has managed to collect a few stamps from most countries. So the countries he does have stamps from, we are going to have a look at, and sometimes I've been able to acquire a few more stamps from that country, so I'll also show you those if I've done that. So that is what we're going to tackle today, and we are looking at the country of Colombia. So if you haven't seen my channel before and this is the first time you found it, welcome. Make sure you like, you subscribe, you leave positive comments, you share with other people, and you put the notification bell on so you don't miss out on anything. And so as we talk about Colombia, what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about the history and how that nation got to be where it is today. And then we're going to dive into the stamp album and see what stamps that my father has managed to acquire and what stamps I've managed to acquire from that country. And it just kind of gives us a little bit of a background when looking at the stamps. In the past, I've looked at country stamps and thought, wow, these are beautiful designs, but I have no idea what they're talking about. I also don't know maybe the history of that country and what they're known for, or some of the situations in their past that have shaped their present. So that's kind of what I want to touch on. I just do a broad image of the history of the country, and then we're going to look at the stamps. So the country of Colombia, or the Republic of Colombia, has a motto of freedom and order, and its capital is Bogota. Now, the name Colombia is a derivative, derives from the famous Spanish explorer Christopher Columbus, so that's how you get Colombia. And it's located mostly in South America, but it does have some islands, two of which are in North America, so it does have coastline in both continents. It's very special in that regard. The country is divided into 32 departments. Now, here in Canada, we call our divisional sections provinces. In the United States, of course, they are states, but in Colombia, they're called departments. The main language is Spanish, but there's 64 indigenous languages also that are spoken there, and there's also Creole English on those two islands that are in the Caribbean. So in 1499, Spanish explorers located what we now know as Colombia. I'm not going to say found or discovered, because it had a rich indigenous history there for 12,000 years before that. So yeah, the Spanish located Colombia in 1499, and in 1510 they had their first stable settlement established. This area was called the Viceroyalty of New Granada when it was first put together, and it includes today's countries of Colombia, Panama, Venezuela, Ecuador, and the northern part of Brazil. And it was kind of established that way in 1717. By 1810, though, Colombia wanted their independence from Spain, and so did a lot of other little countries there. So they kind of broke off and declared their independence, and in 1819 it was officially recognized. In 1822 they called themselves the Republic of New Granada. That was how they changed their name. But that was also when Venezuela, Ecuador, and northern Brazil got their own independence. So now it was just the area of Colombia and Panama that were left. In 1851, slavery was abolished because there were slaves working their agricultural land there until then. In 1858, they decided they're going to change their name again. They're now going to be called the Grenadine Confederation. And that lasted for 5 years when they changed their name in 1863 to the United States of Colombia. And by 1886, 23 years later, they decided, nope, we're just the Republic of Colombia. And that's how it stood. In 1899 to 1902, though, they had the 1,000-Day War, which was a civil war that killed between 100 and 180,000 Colombians. It was the two parties, the liberals and the conservatives, that were at war against each other. And yeah, it lasted till 1902. By 1903, though, the section that is now Panama got its independence with the help of the United States and France. Interesting enough, 1 year later, 1904, the Panama Canal was created, which gave easy access between the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean. So the United States had a little bit of meddling going on in there, trying to encourage Panama's separation and getting favorable trade routes going through there. And we will find out that they kind of meddled quite a bit in Colombia over the next number of years in their political situation. In 1934, Peru and Colombia went to war over a disputed territory called the Amazon Basin, and the League of Nations actually brokered a peace in that, but they ceded the land to Colombia. Between 1848 and 1950s, the violence broke out, which was between the two leading political parties after the assassination of the Liberal presidential candidate in 1948. And in those 2 years, 180,000 Colombians died in that civil conflict. By the end of it, they decided that they would unify the Liberals and the Conservatives, and they would be called the National Front. And every 4 years, they would switch between the Conservative president and the Liberal president. And that lasted for 16 years. By 1960 to 1990, the right-wing paramilitary groups established themselves along with left-wing guerrillas, and it caused instability in the rural areas. There was lots of fighting and conflicts that were breaking out, creating a very unstable economy during those 30 years. There was the rise of cocaine and marijuana exportation in the 1970s. By 1991, they had a new constitution. By 2002 to 2010, they put in some very controversial counterterrorism measures that helped quell some of the violence in the country. 2016, a peace deal was brokered by the President Santos, and he was given the Nobel Peace Prize for that. And then since then, Venezuela and Colombia have been at odds over their political ideologies, and so those two countries are still batting heads. So that gives you an overview of what has happened in Colombia from when the Europeans first got there and decided, well, this makes a good place for exporting things. So let's talk a little bit about the region itself. Did you know it is one of only 17 countries that has been established as mega diverse? So to be considered mega diverse, you need to have 5,000 endemic plants that must border a marine ecosystem. So what's an endemic plant? Well, it's a plant that can only be found in that region. And Colombia is number 3 of the 17 countries to have endemic species or endemic plants. And so a very, very important area for biodiversity. Did you know that 40% of the exports coming out of Colombia are coal and petroleum? They're the 5th largest producer of coal in the world and the 20th largest producer of petroleum in the world. And their trading partners are the United States, Europe, China, and some countries in Latin America that take all that. They're also first in emerald production. So the mining industry in Colombia is very important. They're also top 25 in the world in gold producers. So they produce a lot of rich elements. They have strong, fertile agricultural land and are very important to the world's economies for some of the things that they're producing. And they're also high on automotive parts and some electronic parts that are coming out of there, as well as a lot of other agricultural things to go with it. So that's Colombia in an overview. Yes, we could break down the civil wars, we could break down the different productions that are going on there, the political instability that has taken place. But what I want to do is focus on the positive whenever I do these videos. So it is a destination that people still go to for tourism. Some of the shots and the beauty in that area are amazing. because it has mountains. It has 3 different mountain ranges going through there. It has a coastal line in the Caribbean. It has coastal line in the Pacific. It has lakes and rivers, and so it is a very, very beautiful country with lots of positivity going for it. So that being said, what I want to do now is check out their stamps. My father managed to acquire 3 pages of Colombian stamps. He hasn't put the Scott number below them, which is unusual for him, but when he has a smaller country in quantity of stamps, he sometimes didn't. I will show you what he did get. As you can see, there seems to be a newer mix and an older mix all on these same pages. As we're seeing the stamps, we're learning a little bit too, you know, about their biodiversity. They're showing in their stamps. Their mining is on the stamps, the floral. The nice coastlines that they have. They're a country of nearly 50 million people. And here are the stamps that I've managed to add in. As you're going to see, they're not attached to the binder yet. Nice triangular stamp there. Some airmail stamps in there. Of course, rich culture in dance. Aviation would be very key in a country like Colombia, getting to all the different rural communities. You can see even service clubs, for those of you that collect service club stamps. Those of you that collect churches and transportation and all sorts of other themes. So you're going to find that here as well with Colombian stamps. There's a nice rotary stamp. Another service club. The exploration ships. It was a pivotal location for the Spanish, especially in the war against the English for colonialism. Major battles took place there. The English were trying to take over that section. There's another rotary stamp. So another peek in the binder marked Americas. In our continued alphabetical travel through South America. And yeah, there's some beautiful stamps on there. Lots of different ones that I wouldn't normally expect or wouldn't have thought of in that country, which kind of stuck out when we were going through them there just a minute ago. And maybe I had some quiet time as we looked through it because I was thinking of something else when I saw that stamp. So that's wonderful. Stamps have that ability to trigger emotions. Trigger memories too, that you see a stamp or you see an image and it triggers you for something else. So I always love that about going through my father's stamp collection and seeing either stamps that I saw when he was getting them and it triggers me for a memory of that, or an image that triggers me of something else that happens too. They're very triggering. I don't want to keep saying that word, but yeah. So thanks for joining me once again for looking at the stamps of Colombia and a little brief history of it. Hopefully you'll stay tuned and watch more videos that are still to come, and as we continue to go through my father's stamp collection. Have a magical week. What, Polo? You say like, subscribe, share, and tell all your friends?
Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy?
Bye. Can you guess the next country that we will be doing from this album?